And do you think it does force government to have a position or a policy?
It absolutely forces them to have a policy. However, the policy is and has been since the early 90s reactionary versus proactive. So there was a bit of not a moral panic, but there was a bit of a question floating around of, okay, now that we the public, the general public and the corporations can observe things that used to be only communicated to us through the government, what type of frame and what type of context do we actually have to rely on? Because the government used to be the only source for context and the only source for understanding what was being seen or talked about from print mediums. And then you suddenly have the advent of, oh, well, actually, we don't need the government. So we're going to talk about this, show you the footage, and give you proof. And my goodness, there was a lot of concern that the government had about this process. And so government outlets that used to do nothing except for write and release, brief press releases, briefings, were then forced to, okay, everyone has actually seen this. It can be interpreted in multiple different ways. How are we going to actually retrofit this footage with our context? And so you come up with these spin doctors who are forced to think very much on their feet all the time about, okay, this is what everyone is seeing. However, unless instant contextualization, instant processing, and instant value is placed upon these images, they are going to be worthless because, and this is the one thing the government had going for it, with an influx of images came a surplus of images. So now, instead of having only one picture that represents a battle, you have millions. And the government still realizes, not in a conspiracy way, but the government very quickly realized that it had power to control the narrative through, again, retrofitting via media framing. And I can give you lots of sources for that particular discipline. Framing things such that they fit within their narrative. And this was done by highlighting certain aspects of any fight. So if you have a firefight and you see both sides battling each other, it doesn't have any significance and it doesn't carry weight. It might as well be a video game until you say, these troops have been out here for X number of days. These troops are from this place, which some of our audience can relate to. And the people that they are fighting have, as in providing context, they have done this, which is wrong. They have done X, Y, Z. And so essentially trying to explain through taping over and voiceovering images. And that's very difficult to do when live. So you then have these press briefings, which are kind of framers. They serve to frame what was shown that day. And so White House press briefings and other press briefings from the DOD and the Pentagon would take what was shown live that day in the 90s and frame it according to what messages they wanted to get out. Yes, we are winning. Yes, this is all in defense of freedom. Look how hard our troops are fighting. Yes, this is carnage and it's brought into your living rooms live, but this is what's really happening. And so that ability to provide context actually became what made or broke narratives and control over situations once rolling television news really became the only form of news that people trusted. To answer the question of the relationship between the government and rolling television news, it was tempestuous, and so they had to rethink how to exert control through strategically framing images that would otherwise be more susceptible to subjective views based on who bought the licensing, who recorded it, and what they want to sell that day.